Hi, folks. I'm Gabe Turner.
And I'm Aliza Vigderman.
And this is Are We in the Future?
Are We in the Future is a podcast where we watch movies and TV shows with smart home, cybersecurity, or home security elements and answer the important questions about the technology itself.
Does this exist today?
Can this exist today? Should this exist today?
What modern technology would have made this movie last only up through the first act?
And of course, are we in the future? So what is this episode about, Gabe?
So today we'll be watching White Christmas, an episode from season 2 of Black Mirror. Black Mirror, originally on the BBC before being sold to Netflix, is a sci-fi show created that is still having new episodes made today. Each episode is standalone and usually concerns itself with new technology's effect on society. And on top of that, it's won a total of 6 Emmy Awards, so clearly some quality programming.
Okay, so this episode we obviously picked because of the technology, but it also happened to have Jon Hamm, who is probably my number one celebrity crush. Just saying.
Wow.
I didn't know if you knew that.
I didn't. I don't even know if I would have guessed Jon Hamm, but I kind of get it.
Who would you have guessed?
I feel like Gosling's an easy way to go.
I mean, yeah.
And Idris.
Yeah, I mean, I guess everyone is attracted to them in the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, so it starts with 2 men locked in a room together and we don't know why. So let's just recap the episode.
All right, so Jon Hamm, Matthew, and a guy named Joseph are stuck in a cabin together in total isolation for a job. But this job is not really clear. So they've been living together for 5 years without speaking to one another. But now Matthew, Jon Hamm, Aliza's husband, wants to connect. They talk about why they're in there and their experiences in a past life. And it turns out that Matthew had a service where he was in people's ears and could see through their eyes and was basically helping this awkward British guy go on dates. He uses facial recognition to look at people's information that he's talking to. And ultimately, this British guy likes this woman who's a little bit off. She's a little bit different.
She's a manic pixie dream girl.
Exactly. And the thing is, this girl, this woman sees this awkward British guy talking to Matthew. And so she thinks that he is also hearing voices in her head. Yes, that's right. She hears voices in her head. And she takes him home and proceeds to poison him to put them both out of their misery. Now, Matthew does not report this, even though he was watching and had other people also watching. And this leads to Matthew's wife finding out and essentially blocking him from her life so that she couldn't see or hear him and vice versa.
Yeah, so basically the technology that allowed Matthew to see through this awkward British guy's eyes is called eye link through Z eyes. So that's going to be important. So now it's kind of like an interesting episode because it's basically 3 main stories. So now Matthew switches to, apparently this, dating advice thing was just a side hustle for him. We don't know when this takes place, but apparently people are still doing side hustles.
Yeah, gig economy is the new economy, the future economy, and we're all the worse for it.
Yeah. So his main job is actually basically controlling this technology called cookies. Basically, people take their consciousness and put it they export it to sort of an external hard drive. And his job is to tell the consciousness that they aren't real, but that they're made from code and that they're actually going to control the person's life for them. So it's sort of like an Alexa, except you never actually have to use voice commands because it's in your head being like, oh, I want toast now. So then the consciousness or the cookie will make that happen for you with smart products.
Yeah, which is wild.
Jon Hamm's job is to tell that consciousness person that they're not real, but they are essentially slaves.
Heavy.
Which is hard to hear. And next we hear Joseph's story, which is the other guy that's in the house. So basically, he's kind of like not a great guy. Mm-hmm. He was dating this woman named Beth. She found out she was pregnant. She does not want to have the baby, so she blocks him. He can't see her or hear her at all. He stalks her. She gets a restraining order against him. But every year he knows that she goes up to her dad's house for Christmas. So he keeps going because he's a creep. And he sees that, oh, she actually kept the baby. But he can't see the baby either because the baby is also blocked.
Yeah.
So he goes every year to see it grow up, even though, he literally can't see anything. And then one day he watches the news and he sees that Beth died in a train crash. And now she's unblocked because she's dead. And that also applies to the kid. So he waits until Christmas. He buys a snow globe for his daughter, goes up, sees the girl is Asian. He's white. Beth was white. It is not his child.
Yeah.
This is a Maury moment.
Yeah.
You are not the father.
Yes. Dystopian twist, if you will.
M. Night Shyamalan twist right here. So in anger, he basically kills Beth's father by hitting him in the head with a snow globe, which is not what you should be doing with a snow globe.
No.
It's supposed to be for cheer.
Yeah. Cheer, like, what is it? Just good fortune.
Good fortune.
Yeah. Imagination.
Yeah. It's not a weapon.
Yeah.
Please don't use Christmas festivity as a weapon.
This is also, for the record, as a lawyer, I have to say that's manslaughter.
Yeah. So he manslaughters the grandfather, which is not really funny, but anyway, and then the daughter tries to get help and she ends up dying on the way because it's very, snowy.
Yeah.
It's not great. So then turns out Matthew and Joseph, this is the real twist. We thought the girl being Asian was a twist.
No.
That was not even the main twist.
Pales in comparison.
The main twist is that Matthew and Joseph were never really living together for 5 years. Basically, the police were intercepting Joseph's brain to get a confession out of him. So they basically get the confession out of him, and it turns out Matthew is doing this as part of a plea deal because he's in jail for not reporting the awkward British guy's murder, and also his dating service was highly illegal. And
V illegal, yeah.
V illegal, and he gets out, but the thing is everyone is blocked for him in the world, so he can't see or talk to anybody, which really bummed me out.
Yeah, I mean, because it seems like one really harsh.
Yeah.
Like, have we gone back to some type of Hammurabi's code in the future?
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Good reference.
Yeah. It's like, he's like, I was spying, but so the opposite of that is
for my whole life, I can never talk to anyone
or see anybody and vice versa. That seems hectic.
But these police are kind of morally bankrupt because they can control Joseph's perception of what is happening. So they're like, every minute he's going to be in that house for 1,000 years. They make it so annoying Christmas music is playing in his house and he can't get it to stop. He smashes the radio. It doesn't work. Yeah,
this is like Guantanamo Bay level torture.
Yeah, and I'm not saying Joseph is a good guy, but this is a little ridiculous. So finally, and this may be the biggest twist of all.
Yes.
Finally, they zoom out and it turns out that Joseph is stuck in the house in the snow globe in his house. They keep zooming out.
Yeah, I didn't understand it that well, but
I thought it was a little unnecessary. It reminded me of when Michael Scott is trying to make the paper commercial for Dunder Mifflin, and he's like, we zoom out and it's on a beach, and then we zoom out again and it's a play. And I was just that felt a little it cheapened the whole episode, but it was actually a really good episode.
Yeah, I mean, I just have to say this real briefly is that I was watching this and I was thinking about the coercion, maybe like the confession and how legal this is.
I know.
Is it America? Is it did they have the same laws as we do?
England.
I think it was England too, and I realized then. Our laws are kind of based on English law, but I did not understand how their stuff works at all in this scene.
Yeah, we aren't sure the legality, but
the future seems terrible.
Yeah, if this is the future,
if you get arrested, it's pretty terrible now. If you get arrested,
it's even worse.
It seems
in the future.
Which I didn't think was possible, but hey, here we are.
Poor John Hamm.
Poor John Hamm.
It's how are you going to block that handsome face?
You're really. Really, you're punishing the whole world.
Yeah, seriously.
You can't see him. You can't see John.
Seriously. So obviously this episode is very centered around technology. So today we are going to focus on the ZI that let John Hamm see everything through the awkward British guy's eyes, the cookie, which is the consciousness, and the idea of blocking people. So Gabe, can you tell me a little bit more about how the ZI works?
So in the show, Matthew, John Hamm, once again, uses this to see out of the British guy, the awkward British guy's eyes, and speak to him without anyone knowing it. Basically just your pure creeper, behavior. And it's actually inspired by Bluetooth headsets and Google Glass. It's kind of the thing you would see like in a James Bond movie, essentially, or like a Mission Impossible.
Yeah, Google Glass. I kind of remember it, but like, where did it go?
So it was like a hands-free pair device that goes on glasses. There was a transparent display, very much like the episode, actually. And you command it with your voice, and it worked with Bluetooth, had a camera. So like an expert remote assistant could like view your video. And the touchpad ran from the temple to the ear. You just tap to wake up, and then you'll see, everything you could basically see on your Apple Watch or iPhone, and then you could kind of swipe and tap, and you'd be able to use it.
Yeah. So is it like, can I buy it?
No, it's no longer available for any consumers, just businesses. It's used on some farms in terms of like doing inspections and digital work. And apparently it does work pretty well. There's like a 25% reduction in production time on low volume, complex assembly type work, which is pretty interesting. It also allows people to access training videos, images with instructions, or a quality assurance checklist. You can also look at like video chat or live stream footage, and it's used by a number of companies like GE, Volkswagen, and Samsung, and it's just sold through like Glass Partners, which are typically third-party tech companies, and it just depends on the software customization, the level of customer support necessary, and just the training needs. So it's actually kind of cool in that sense.
So why isn't it something that, we see normal people using? Not that people that work at any of these companies are normal, but just like the everyday, like why didn't this take off?
So this is an issue that a lot of technological companies run into, historically speaking, where it's not entirely clear why consumers needed it. What was the problem that it was solving? So people are like, oh, well, okay, I can do these things, but like I also have my smartphone here.
Right.
And it wasn't really able to make a dent in the market because of that.
Right. So the Google Glass is not going to be a thing for the everyday person. Is there anything, like if I wanted to see through someone else's eyes and speak to them, is there anything for that?
Well, they seem to be transitioning to smart contact lenses, and people are saying that that could be a huge industry in the future, which is kind of interesting.
So what are smart contact lenses and what can they actually do?
So they can essentially display consoles, kind of like Google Glass, but they don't require another wearable. And then other elements is that people have tried to use them to kind of, because a contact lens is touching your actual biological, eye.
How do I put this?
Yeah.
Eye.
And so in 2014, Google said that, okay, we're working on these contact lenses that will help people with diabetes measure their glucose just through the tears in their eyes, and they don't have to, do the whole needle prick thing every day. But they actually discontinued that project in 2018 because it turned out that tears were not consistent enough to measure glucose. Which means they just weren't watching sad enough movies.
Yeah, you got to put on
A
Star is Born or something. Just the end.
Just the end. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so clearly, Google Glass is not going to be something that the everyday consumer will use. Is there anything that's similar that, if I wanted to buy it today, I could?
Yeah, so there are a couple of products out there, and honestly, they're pretty fascinating. I mean, I've, done a few different VR things here and there. I've seen what is...
Dabbled.
Dabbled. I've seen what's in the space. But really, the two companies that are really I guess, on the cutting edge in terms of consumers are going to be Microsoft and Magic Leap. Now, Microsoft has a product called the HoloLens, which is kind of like this mixed reality thing. And where they really have done a great job is not only have they brought the ability for you to see a host of things in front of you and actually interact with them, but they actually are able to track your hand movements really well. So you can actually really have like almost this tactile experience with your surroundings. For example, maybe you have it set up so that, you know, you're in your kitchen and you need to know like what the weather is because that's where you get stuff together. And you can decide you want to change one window and pinch and slide it to be larger to look at one thing versus another. And you just really have this ability to really change your reality around you just using your hands, your voice, and that's really impressive. Now, when you're looking at Magic Leap, it's a very similar product, except that they're already out, basically. Whereas Microsoft HoloLens is available for pre-order. It's going to be available at $3,500. Magic Leap, which I also want to say does have essentially a wider field of view, also puts all this digital content around you. And if you're interested in trying it out, you can do so at like select AT&T stores. And once again, you know, if you have a clock or a timer, you can see that visually represented in your space. You can actually manipulate it. You can manipulate other windows. You can, you know, if you're, for example, trying to look at a rhombus or a rhombus in 3D, you could actually manipulate that rhombus and like look at it.
Honestly, would have been useful for me in geometry class because they were always doing stuff with like, oh, this like rotate the shape, and I was like, oh my god, like exactly. I can't think of this.
I know.
Yeah,
I wish this had been available for me when I was doing all my math classes, you know, because it was hard. It was hard. I also did a lot of my high school math in Spanish, so it would have been great.
But math is the same in every language.
That's what y'all think. So anyway, the Magic Leap is available now. The Creator Edition is up for about $2,300 on its website. So you can just get to manipulating and looking. Yeah, it's a little spendy. It's a little spending, but
yeah.
I mean, you want to be on the cutting edge.
I do. I certainly do.
Yeah. One element of this particular episode is this whole idea behind blocking people, which is something, of course, we have in digital form today. Mm-hmm. But it looked pretty different. I mean, when you were watching it on the screen, essentially everyone came up as like a blur, you just could not make out any defining characteristics. You could know that there was a person there. Yeah,
and you could hear their voices were kind of like Charlie Brown's parents. Yeah, like you could hear that they were making sounds, but nothing was coming across.
Yeah, it was really creepy. I just want to, for one moment, digress and say the whole element of someone being blocked and then their child also being blocked for you was also wild for me. I was just like, that is some scary stuff. Cause
I know, and it not even being his son or his daughter.
His daughter, yeah. But anyway, so yeah, that was an element, and it was a super helpful solution for Beth. Speaking of Joseph and, you know, his creeping and stalking, because he, you know, was after her for years.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if someone came to your Christmas every year and just like was watching from afar. You'd feel violated.
Yeah. If it's not Santa Claus.
Yeah, so apparently, you know, not to bum everyone out, but apparently stalking is pretty common. 1 in 6 women and 1 in 9 men have been stalked in their lifetimes, according to the National Institute of Justice. The primary targets are usually adults from 18 to 29, also according to the National Institute of Justice. And the average stalking case actually lasts 2 years, according to the Center County Women's Resource Center in State College, PA. That's like a shocking amount of people.
That is like significantly higher. You know, I mean, in my background, as an attorney, and I've not particularly done anything with stalkers per se. I've done a lot of interpreting and various types of cases, worked on some things maybe somewhat related, but you know, basically you have a restraining order. You can use like communications as evidence against the person, but is there any way that people can actually use technology to avoid their stalker?
Yeah. So basically, I did some research. I found this really great organization that helps, women and girls take control of their technology to end gender-related violence. It's called Take Back the Tech. So there are a lot of things you can do if you have a stalker to avoid them. First of all, turn off automatic cloud saving because you don't want everything to be going to one cloud. Erase your data if you are going to be recycling your SIM card. Definitely get a password manager, which everyone should anyway, and you should all look at our best password managers of 2019, but I digress. If you're really, really trying to be private, you can get a separate SIM card for private calls. Obviously only enable GPS when you're actually using it. I don't think we realize we have GPS on most of our apps and are constantly it's really easy to find out where people are. And obviously just, being discreet with social media, making everything private. Your profile picture should not identify you, and you can leave just, put as little information as possible, and you can even create a different email for site registration. So those are some things that you can do with the technology we have today. Unfortunately, we cannot block people as they did in the episode.
Well, I mean, as far as blocking goes, what are some available apps or whatever for blocking?
So if you want to block all methods of someone contacting you, I wrote him, but anyone could be a stalker.
Absolutely.
You might have to call your cell phone provider to actually block the number directly. And there are a couple apps. You have the Call Control Call Blocker. That's kind of
it's an odd name.
Odd name.
Hyphenated.
Yeah. Hyphenated like a last name. But basically it blocks calls not only from, your personal blacklist, but also from spam, robocallers. It blocks calls and text. And it's on the Google Play Store. And then there's an app called Hiya, which identifies and blocks calls before they even disturb the user, and that's free. So there are some things that you can do that are pretty simple with technology to stay as private as possible.
I do wonder is that Hiya like hello, or is that Hiya like a martial arts exclamation?
I would say the second, given that it's a blocking app.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So that's a bit heavier than we typically delve into, but it's honestly an important topic.
Yes.
And so the last thing we actually wanted to chat about, which is the cookie, which to me just looked like an egg that they said that had a lot of technology inside of it.
It literally has your entire being in it. So it's basically Alexa, but if Alexa was you, pretty much had your exact personality, knew your likes and dislikes, knew exactly what you want when you wanted it. So if you think I'm hungry, your consciousness, your cookie would just make that happen via your smart toaster. And in the show, basically the cookie was conducting the life. It was really, really cool to see. So she, the woman who gets the cookies named Greta, and her cookie helps her do everything from making breakfast to going over her schedule to controlling her music and lighting. So obviously we have a lot of the technology in terms of the devices, like smart kitchen gadgets, light bulbs, and speakers. But what I really wanted to talk about is the actual transference of a person onto a device. So is it possible to code an entire personality and also a soul?
Whoa. Talk about going deep today.
I know.
We're really
I never did any philosophy before.
Oh, okay. So we should definitely start on this podcast.
Yeah, this is...
This should be your introduction. We're gonna hit all the greats, Foucault, Rawls, we're just gonna go.
Why do they all have such hard to pronounce names? None is just Smith. It's I've heard so many different pronunciations of Nietzsche.
Yeah. They're a lot.
Yes.
Everyone teach their own when it comes to pronunciation is how I view the world. But so what is this artificial consciousness
what is it? Good question.
People can think of it as machine consciousness or synthetic consciousness. Some people want to believe that you can emulate the brain's consciousness. Would this not require some type of deep learning, which solves computational tasks quickly?
Are you asking me? I thought you were telling me what.
I'm just thinking about it. I'm just trying to think how is this like, how are we going to hit this artificial consciousness moment?
So we are not there yet, obviously, because no one knows. Seems like it's still in the philosophy stage. Although, Marvin Minsky, who is a co-founder of MIT's AI lab, thinks that it is possible in the future. Although at this point, human consciousness is not well defined enough to replicate it with algorithms. So, but I can see us getting there in our lifetime.
Really?
Yeah, like a very basic version that like messes up a lot, but like I can see you like programming it with like likes and dislikes and schedules. I mean, we're already getting there. It's just like manual. So maybe in our lifetime isn't fair because obviously we'll all be dead from climate change in like 12 years. But in the case that we don't.
Super uplifting episode.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, I mean, I think about it and it's like we're getting close to the point from what I've seen that people can control things with their brain.
Yeah.
Right?
Neural technology.
So the question is like, at what point, if something just like shadowed us for a year, or 3 years, and it was machine learning or whatever the whole time, and it just was like, these are the things that this person does.
Yeah.
Maybe you're right.
I don't even think it would take that long because most of us do the same thing every day.
Oh, okay.
I mean, like, we all go to work, we go on the subway, right. Like, we have a routine.
We're automatons.
Well, not everyone goes on the subway, but you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
So, next segment, Gabe, do you want to introduce it?
I would like to introduce it.
Okay.
So this is called Dear Hollywood. Dear Hollywood. It's basically our look at, how this movie could have been really changed up just by the technology
itself. It's
a
TV show, but go on.
Oh, yeah. This is a TV show.
I know, it does seem like a movie.
It does seem like a movie. These episodes are kind of long.
Yeah, they're like 90 minutes, which is like as long as a movie, but it is technically a TV show.
Exactly.
I don't want to get sued,
Right. So one tech feature of this episode that we didn't get to yet is facial recognition. Right. And Matthew uses the facial recognition in ZEyes to look up information about his client's potential love interests. Mm-hmm. Now, there's many ways that facial recognition is used today, but only one do I think would make an excellent film.
Yeah, so it's called FaceMe, one word. Tech companies love to take two one-syllable words, push them together. FaceTime.
FaceMe.
Cyberlink.
Yeah.
Which is the name of the company that made it, coincidentally. So FaceMe is actually signage with facial recognition built in. So what it does, a person, stands in front of it, it scans their face, it learns who's looking at the ad, judging by their gender, age, and even emotion, and then it gives them customized ads based on those factors. Like you thought your Instagram ads were personalized, now like the sign on the bus stop is going to be personalized to you.
Wow. And the funny thing is, it'll still just be oat milk.
Yeah, it'll be oat milk no matter what. But
yeah, that's all I care about.
Weirdly, I was in Greenpoint the other day and I saw like a coconut milk like marketing car. It was the weirdest thing ever.
I'm a coconut milk guy when I go to Starbucks. Because then you put the coconut milk in their drinks and somehow it makes it that much more delicious. But, I try to support local roasters. But I digress. How well does it work?
Well, its true acceptance rate is up to 98.5%, which is actually better than the iPhone's facial recognition capabilities to, give you some sort of standard to judge it by.
Well, that's actually impressive.
So it's really good at determining your demographics and emotional state. So I think this would be a great topic for a dystopian thriller in the vein of.
Wait. So this is already out.
Well, yes and no. I mean, it is, but in Asia, as far as the US goes, I would expect it within the next few years.
Ooh, I just want to make one note. I used to read like Popular Mechanics and Popular Science pretty religiously. And I remember
Nerd.
I once read an article where they said that ads were going to be able to send sound to you but only sound to your space. So now I'm thinking you have FaceMe, so it knows, like I'm walking through the grocery store, it's like, oh, this guy is about to buy some oat milk. And then the oat milk person speaks to me, but you don't hear it. Like you're in the same aisle. But like they're figuring out how to send sound into like very specific spaces.
Like ventriloquism, but they need to consult a ventriloquist. They've mastered that.
They really have. But anyway, I want to go back to FaceMe because it sounds.
I want to go back to oat milk, actually, and I'm not kidding because did you watch this season of Queer Eye, season 4?
I've not watched it yet.
This is not relevant, and someone may want to cut it out. And to you, I say, sure, I get it, but. On Queer Eye, they visit a dairy farmer, and it is the most like pro-dairy episode I've ever seen of anything, to the point where I'm like, this had to have been sponsored by like a dairy lobbyist. Because like the whole thing is like, oh, he's a dairy farmer and like he's not doing well because everyone's drinking like oat milk and almond milk.
Oh,
it was so pro-dairy. I was like, I feel like I'm watching like government propaganda that's like, it was crazy.
I mean, that's what got us on milk to begin with. That was government propaganda. So
I know, because like most people can't digest milk well.
Yeah, I like the consistency from the government in this regards, though.
I know, it's like the government is pretty back and forth, but on dairy, it's always been pro, and that's across all parties.
It's across all parties. Iowa. All right.
Anyway,
so this FaceMe stuff is pretty creepy, right?
Definitely is. The good thing is that Cyberlink doesn't keep any of your personal data, just your vector points. So basically where your ears, eyes, and mouth are, they're sent up to the cloud. But you can't actually like get anything as far as identifiable information out of that, which is good. And their technology doesn't only need to be used for ads. It can also be added to existing security systems just to up their facial recognition.
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not a film exec yet.
But
I want to say, dear Hollywood, please use FaceMe as inspiration for the next Blade Runner 3099.
Yes, it seems perfect. So our last segment is called Origin Stories. Now, I always love to like go on IMDb after I watch any TV show or movie and get all the random facts. So I was curious, where did the inspiration come from this episode? Because it's kind of like too real. Gabe, any intel?
Yeah, so all the writing was done by Charlie Brooker, who is the show's creator and showrunner. And like this format of having 3 separate stories came from 2 places. Dead of Night, a 1940s horror film, and Twilight Zone, the movie, a personal fave, which came out in 1983.
So what about the technology? Was that inspired by real life, or was that like another movie or TV show? Where did he get all that stuff from?
So some, a little mix. He uses some technology from season 1, episode 3, The Entire History of You, which was also co-written and created by that showrunner, Charlie Brooker, where the main character has a grain implanted behind his ear, which records everything he sees and hears, and he can do a redo. I definitely remember this episode where they can play back memories on an eye or to a video memory, and it's like very similar to the iLink CI.
I just can't imagine being able to like play back memories because people have such like different memories than what actually happened.
I don't believe anything I've ever experienced. Like if I don't see it in the present, I'm just like, I don't know. Let me tell you why.
Why?
I was on Facebook recently. I was going through my pictures, just nostalgia, reminiscing on life and who I used to be.
Yeah.
Right? I see a picture of me playing with lions.
What?
And I said, who photoshopped me into this picture? Why am I playing with lions? I had no memory of playing with lions. And I asked my friends, I said, hey, where are these lions from? You're in these pictures too. And they were like, Gabe, we went to a lion park in South Africa.
Seems like something you wouldn't forget.
Yeah. Right?
That's
Nala,
shocking.
Simba, you don't forget those experiences in your life.
But apparently you do.
Completely forgot. Don't remember driving there. Don't remember what we paid. Don't remember, and I always remember what I paid.
That's the real shocking part.
And I just was with all these lions and I just can't remember.
That's crazy.
And the thing is, there's nothing that should have made me forget. Nothing was involved. So why did I forget? Anyway, I don't trust
I guess
memories.
you just didn't connect with the lions. There was not an emotional
I guess I'm more of a
connection
dog person.
there. Yeah.
So Google, another thing that inspired this episode was Google Glass and like blocking on social media. That's kind of what made Charlie say, hey, you know what? I got an idea for another episode.
Okay, so aside from the technology, how did he think of these stories? Because these are pretty bizarre in a good way, but I'm just wondering where the inspiration, where does the inspiration come from? to be a little James Lipton.
Thank you. Inside the Actors Studio with Aliza and Gabe.
Yeah.
So the dating story was inspired by Bluetooth headsets, and people always like they're talking to themselves. So that's kind of where the awkward British guy kind of ended up getting killed for that, because he talked to another person who really was talking to himself, and it's unfortunate. And he was also inspired by like pickup artists' icebreakers.
Yeah.
And we didn't like say this earlier in the episode, but essentially the way he starts talking to this awkward woman is he just walks up to her group and he says, did you see the shirtless guy on the horse? And everyone's like, what? And apparently this is like a thing that pickup artists use, like
in real life.
In real life, they use like some absurdist commentary to start a conversation with people.
I feel like if someone said that to me, I'd be like, I just would be so confused. Like it wouldn't, I don't know. I'm like, how can this work on people? But apparently it does.
Yeah. So also, we need to be clear, and this is also somewhat unfortunate. There's an entire pickup community out there, and that's kind of their goal. And so this was also somewhat of a commentary on this community of people that exist, where it's like, hey, how can we all help each other to go out and pick up women? Doesn't seem super healthy.
Yeah, I mean, it's known as the seduction community, which like, yikes.
Yeah, yes, I've seen a few. It seems a little rife with misogyny.
Yeah, it's very, there's a lot of crossover with incels.
Yeah, a lot of incel crossover there. And then the Greta story Greta is the woman who puts her consciousness inside of a cookie, was inspired by the idea of putting someone's consciousness into a toaster, and then that toaster falls in love, which, is just something Charlie said, but who knows where he got that from.
That doesn't really explain it.
It's
like, okay, but what inspired you to think of putting consciousness in a toaster?
I mean, look, I love that. What's that movie called? The Toaster movie? The Disney movie?
There's a toaster movie?
Oh, yeah. What is it? Oh, the Brave Little Toaster. Thank you. That's our producer.
Here's how I view that. I view that as you viewed your photo of you with lions. I have no memory of it.
You don't remember the Brave Little Toaster?
No.
Inspiring stuff. All right.
Maybe that'll be our next episode. Hey, toasters
That's where Charlie
technology.
got it from. Exactly. And then the third story about Joseph and Beth is based off an idea from Brooker's show on Invasions, in which a pair of glasses showed, homeless people as cartoon characters. And it was kind of like a parody of shopping TV with like crazy products.
This guy thinks outside the box.
He really does. We should just do an episode about Charlie Brooker.
I would love to talk to him and just be like, what's your relationship with toasters?
Yeah. Charlie, if you're listening, please come on the podcast.
We would love to know, because he's very creative.
Yeah, in all seriousness.
Yeah, no, actually. So now that we're nearing the end of the episode, no tears, can you please explain to me how he thought of that awful ending? The snow globe, the house. Where are we?
So apparently this was based on the god, Stephen King's shorts.
It says
No, I'm calling Stephen King the god.
Oh. I was like, and now we're just making up words. Okay, sorry.
The story is called The Jaunt. It's a 1981 story by Stephen King. Mm-hmm. And in jaunting or teleporting even to another planet, you must be unconscious or you'll die or wake up insane. To a conscious mind, the process lasts an eternity. One is left alone with their thoughts, nowhere, just like Greta. Mm-hmm. And, at the end of that story, it turns out his son held his breath during anesthesia and went insane, much like Greta and Joseph.
Yeah, again, it's like clearly there was a lot more there, but like it's hard to kind of map out Charlie Brooker's mind and thought process. And that's why he is a successful Hollywood showrunner and writer, and we are not.
Yeah, that's right. That's it.
And that's okay.
That's okay, because we can talk about it. Thank you, Charlie Brooker.
Thank you.
We appreciate you.
So I want to ask the question that's been on everyone's mind. Are we in the future?
Are we in the future? I mean, we're getting close. I mean, where we can't actually put our consciousness in a toaster. I know that's everyone's favorite thing. Sorry, Charlie.
I just wanted my toaster to fall in love with me.
Yeah. I mean, look, we live in New York. We know what the game is like.
Oh, God.
It's rough out here. But
it is.
We're getting there. Microsoft HoloLens, Magic Leap, those products you could basically buy them. You could buy a Magic Leap tomorrow if you had $2,300. And I just think, like every other technology, as we go forward, I mean, you're thinking in 5 to 10 years, it's going to be a pretty common consumer product. It's available now. It's of course it's not even 1% of the population has it, but it's going to be there. And so we are in the future. We are approaching the future when it comes to manipulating our realities. And you're saying, whoa, that's not reality. Manipulating a rhombus is not reality, but digital life is life.
I feel like I almost spend more time in the digital world than in the real world.
For sure, it's easier.
It's better.
Anyway. We're getting there. We are very close to the future, and I, for one, am here for it.
As am I.
Thank you all for listening.
Bye.